Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. And today I'm joined with Melissa, and she is the founder of the Neurovascular Foundation. And yeah, it's gonna be really interesting today. We're going to talk about lots about autism, and yeah, thank you, Melissa, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, because it's gonna be really nice to talk about autism, because yeah, like yeah, it's gonna be nice to hear about what it's about, like why you chose to create it, and everything like that. And yeah, just talk about autism, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So the Neurovascular Foundation was established in 2015, and I saw an increasing need to help children and families suffering with the symptoms associated with autism. And I had been working with orthopedic injuries and multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease. But when I saw how rapidly the kids' symptoms improved, I decided to make my main focus autism. So,
Um, like what I like to like with autism, because I like to, like, because I'm autistic, of course. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't know if you agree. Like I always, that's why we have a podcast, raise awareness of autism. And yeah, like I don't believe it's something to be proud of. Autism.
well, I think that autism is a physical problem that is caused from trauma, either from in the womb or at birth, or a lot of it can be traced back to a child that rolled off the bed at 3 months, or fell off a swing when they were two. And so I believe that the postural imbalances that are caused from those traumatic events is what leads to the symptoms associated with autism. So they say that people with autism, that they don't share any characteristics, that they're all over. Everyone has different symptoms, but I would say that the one characteristics that all of the people on the spectrum share is the postural imbalances that lead to motor disturbances and gait abnormalities, and the nonverbal, all the way down to the three core areas.
Mhm. Yeah. Like with autism, because as you probably know, I have Crohn's disease. And Crohn's is a disease, and with autism, it's not a disease, um, because they're two separate things. And like with Crohn's, like my diagnosis of Crohn's was pretty tough. With autism, um, I um, I I like to spread awareness of autism, because I am a person that's passionate about that, and I feel like because there's I don't like it when people like say it's like it needs to be cured, because
Yeah.
in my own mind I feel like it's not a disease, and many people would agree with me there, because it's something you you shouldn't be ashamed of. At first, don't get me wrong, when I was diagnosed I was 9 years old. I didn't know what autism was at all. And when I learned about it, because I went from special school, well, no, sorry, mainstream school to a special school, because I couldn't get the support I needed. And that really changed my life, Melissa.
Yeah.
And yeah, and ever since then, I do podcasts, speak to different people, have their on there about their journeys,
Mhm.
different people that say why they create organisations, and actually, as it is Autism Awareness Month, a month where it's dedicated to raising awareness and acceptance. I think acceptance is the word we need to use,
Yeah.
because we should all be accepted for who we are. If we are a bit different, it's good to be different, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I car accidents. They were a year apart, and I ended up almost unable to talk to any new people. So if somebody would introduce me to a friend, I would get so overwhelmed and my face would turn beet red and I would start shaking and I just could look at the ground. And, you know, for the first 20 years of my life, I never experienced anything like that. So after the two car accidents a year apart, and I found myself unable to communicate with anyone that I didn't know. And it wasn't that I didn't understand everything they were saying to me, and it wasn't that I didn't know the answer. It was just very difficult for me to speak it out loud. And so I come from a place, I had an understanding of how it felt to be spoken to and know what you want to say back, but not be able to say it. And so, you know, as I was working, you know, like I said, through the orthopedic and MS and Parkinson's, and then, you know, started working with kids who were on the spectrum, it was so amazing for me to see that after their postural imbalances were corrected, you know, a physical problem, that, you know, their verbal communication improved, their social interaction, their gastrointestinal issues improved, their sleep improved. So to be able to, you know, extend that to the families that were suffering with these, because, you know, of course, there's nothing to be ashamed of, you know, with autism, but there's a lot of suffering that goes along with it, you know, the sleep deprivation, the gastrointestinal issues, you know, like just like I was explaining, the social interaction that is so difficult for, you know, somebody on the spectrum that people take for granted. So when, you know, these postural imbalances are corrected, all of these core areas also improve. So it's just amazing, because it's also a technique that I love to teach the parents. I don't want people to depend on, well, I have to be able to make an appointment in order to help my child, but also like understanding triggers. You know, I had parents come to me, it's like they just thought the child was screaming for no reason. You know, it's like I don't know why they do this, it's just out of nowhere. But then it's like understanding that no, noises and smells, it's like they're 1,000% stronger because your senses are heightened when you have autism. I'm sure you experience that. So somebody that walks by with perfume and this 3-year-old child can't say that it just made them feel nauseous. Instead, they just, you know, scream as a response. Or the traffic, when the traffic's going by, and like noise canceling headphones, for example, when they're going to have to walk across the street, would be a game changer for these children. Or like a leaf blower, the neighbor's leaf blower gives them a splitting headache. It feels like an axe. And, you know, so it's things like that that I think that people should understand about the other things that are involved, the suffering that is involved when your physical body isn't where it should be, you know, where your posture is imbalanced.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. In my being a person that is can you communicate? Because I've spoken to parents as well, that have had children that aren't verbal, and they have thought it's a really bad thing. And I try to, I say to them, try. It is hard. I can't imagine how hard it can be, if a person is non-verbal. But like it's important, like when someone gets a diagnosis of autism, for the parents to, especially the parents, to understand it as much as they can.
Yeah.
Because if they don't accept their child being autistic, how is the child going to accept it?
Right.
Because it won't work, will it? But yeah, for me, I'm sensory. I am, with my autism. Like you said about music and noise and certain movements, that really affects me and annoys me.
Yeah.
Like for example, just eating food, like well, not me eating food, someone else, if they make the noise, it will really affect me, and it will be like a black chalkboard. Like if they're scraping their plate a lot, that's how it is
Yeah,
for me. And it's hard to escape those situations sometimes
yeah,
because
yeah.
people have to make noise, don't they?
Right, right. Yeah, these external triggers. The thing that I try to, when with the parents and I talk for the first time, the thing that I think is so important is that even if a child is nonverbal, they can still understand everything that is being said around them.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
the input is going in perfectly. It's just the integration and output that they're having trouble with. So I see a lot of parents who will have discussions in front of their kids, thinking that they don't understand because they're not talking, but in fact they understand everything they're saying. So, and I saw your podcast about the food that people eat, and I think it's genius. I'm so happy that you touched on that topic, because I also talk to parents about that. They always think, well, my child only eats french fries and bananas and seaweed, and anything else he just screams. And they might have a nutritionist who says, you know what, that is not a balanced diet. But what they don't understand is that maybe if when they eat protein, their body can't digest it. So it just sits there and grows bacteria and makes them so sick. And they know that. And that's why they scream and don't want to eat the food that's put in front of them. So I think that parents should really also honor what their child is telling them that their body needs,
Yeah,
because maybe their body, maybe the french fries take the nausea away. So I loved that podcast of yours where you guys spoke about that, because I think that's really, nobody really is talking about that topic. They
yeah,
just think, well, this is the balanced diet, this is what everyone should have, but everybody's different, you
that's it.
know and so.
Yeah, it's a topic that I think needs to be taught more because, like,
Mhm,
with like Crohn's, for example, I can't eat, I can't have caffeine, for example, um,
mhm,
or like we said before, like you could eat French fries, but might not be able to have fruit, and
mhm.
people say you got to be a diet, and for me, Crohn's is not that based diet. It's not a diet thing. People can have diets, if they want. Like you might, you kind of know at some point in your life, what you can eat and what you can't. But the good thing that can all change. with, with, with,
Yes.
with that, it's not going to also be the same forever.
Yeah.
For that period of time. And something really interesting with some people have actually came on my podcast, and um, we've either talked about a topic about around Crohn's, if they have Crohn's, or autism. And then some people have said that they've I had a fair few that I've got both, which I find really interesting because I don't find many people that have autism and Crohn's. It's either one or the other. Um, and yeah, and some people have come on have autism,
Mhm.
and they felt that they said that it's prone. Some people with autism can experience like chr- chronic pain issues. It might not be Crohn's, it's just in that area, and
Yeah.
I found that really interesting. So, like
Yeah.
what you sounded at the beginning, that you said you felt that, like I think you said a little bit about that at the beginning, and yeah, that is very interesting.
Yes. So according to the neurovascular theory, it is sustained muscular contraction and scar formation that create external compressive forces on the joints, the neurovascular system, and also the internal organs. So I'm sure you've heard a lot about the autonomic nervous system imbalance, that these kids with, on the spectrum are in sympathetic dominance. So there's two branches to the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, the accelerator and the brake. And the parasympathetic is responsible for rest, digestion, and repair. So if you're in sympathetic dominance, that means that your digestion, your rest, and your repair are quiescent. So they're not functioning at their full capacity. So that's why when you reduce the scar formation and the sustained muscular contraction,
Yeah.
It takes the external compressive forces off of the internal organs, and digestion improves, including, the pain and the inflammation and all of the things that are associated with Crohn's.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that's really interesting because I always thought, because I was diagnosed with autism when I was 9, that would be in 2009, and Crohn's in 2017. So they were quite apart, I'd say. And I always think that I possibly had Crohn's, well, probably when I was younger, maybe.
Yeah.
And it just got developed to more painfully in that year, 2017. So I always feel that that although what they're two completely different things, but I always feel that I have some sort of similar things, because although I accept them both, I wouldn't change not having either, because one's an illness, one isn't.
Right.
And actually, speaking of that, at the start of the month, quite a lot of people in the autism community got, well, if they saw this certain thing, that there was a tweet, which I think, and about, I think it was another organisation, and they did remove it in the end, which it was good, and that they were. It was on, I think, Autism Acceptance Day, and they said about it, autism needs to be cured. It's a disease, and I don't think they would have thought my response, but someone else responded as well, and contacted them to, I suppose, remove it because it was false information. And yeah, and I said that it's something to not be ashamed of. Although it's really hard. I think any diagnosis, isn't it, is really hard at the beginning. Then it
Yeah.
gets easier.
Yeah. Well, but the symptoms associated with autism, though, can be very difficult. And so that's what, I'm interested in is bringing some relief to people that are suffering with these symptoms, including the ones that are associated with Crohn's disease. Because if the same underlying structural issue that is leading to the symptoms associated with autism that is leading to the symptoms associated with Crohn's, and you can remove that structural issue, then you get great relief of the symptoms. So the question usually is why do some people have these symptoms and other people's have these symptoms? And it really has to do with the pattern of spasticity. So if you have Crohn's disease with autism, for example, I would expect, if I saw you and did an assessment, that I would find that your neck and your stomach and your back are very tense, that you have a lot of scar tissue and muscle contraction over top of those areas. And maybe some of the kids who do a lot of the flapping with their arms, what I would find is that their arms are very tense. So the birthing process is very traumatic. And so some people on their way out, they injure their neck. Some kids injure their arms. Some kids injure their legs. So it just depends what your specific trauma was during the birthing process and when you were learning to walk. And people always say, oh, well, how do these kids get, all of this scar tissue? And I say, well, you must not have been around a 1-year-old, very often, because if you just watch them, how many times they fall and hit their knees and hit their head, there's a lot of scar tissue that accumulates as a result of those injuries. So.
Yeah, I like it brings sense to when you're saying about it being tense, because I am sometimes. And yeah, I did have quite a lot of problems. I wasn't eating as a baby. I know that was long ago, but as you say, like the birthing, like when you're getting born and stuff, that was something. So yeah, I always believe, like, I would love to know why I've got Crohn's. I would love to know that. More so autism. No, I mean more. I'd like to know why I'm more. The reason was of Crohn's rather than autism, because Crohn's is more painful for me. Because although autism, it might, like, certain things may trigger you, like noise and stuff, it's not painful for me. It's just stuff I can handle. And yeah, I have with Crohn's, it is difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Like because in a pandemic, especially because I take medication that lower my immune system. So that isn't good for well, it's good that it's helping we have no pain, but it's annoying at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely is. And then, yeah, of course, I mean, anytime, even if it's not a pandemic, being on medications that lower your immune system is your first line of defense, so it's there to protect you. So, that's why, when you have the structural change, when you address the underlying structural issue and you take the pressure off the internal organs so that they can get proper flow into and out, then they function at a much higher level and they reduce the symptoms and definitely pain. There's a lot of pain relief when you take the baths. I'm not sure, did you get the minerals? Did we send you the minerals before the podcast? If not, I definitely want to make sure you get some bath minerals because they work so well. People will say that this feels like a Xanax without the hangover. It helps with sleep and digestion and a lot of pain relief and also reduces inflammation. So did you get any minerals yet?
No, I don't believe I needed any.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna definitely make sure we send those to you because I think that they'll be very helpful. Do you suffer with a lot of pain with the Crohn's on a daily basis, or just if you eat the wrong foods?
It's at the moment it's okay. Like I can eat as much like at the moment. Like let's go. I talked to you about like in 2017 and stuff. Like when I was diagnosed, like the process of it maybe. Like I talk a little bit about my Crohn's.
Mhm.
Like when I was diagnosed in 2017, I lost a lot of weight throughout that year. And then more of October time is when I got diagnosed. Um, and from that, yeah, I was wondering what was going on because I never heard of Crohn's before I was diagnosed. Um, I suppose it's nice if you do. I know people that do know that they what Crohn's is, which is helpful, I suppose. Um, but yeah, I had yeah, and then I got to the stage where I couldn't eat, which was really sore and painful. Like the pain was, I always remember it's on my right side of my stomach, which was burny feeling and acidy.
Mhm.
Um, and it's very hard to explain, um, because it's not visible, is it? Like, no, you can't see my pain.
Yeah.
um, but from that, I've put on these liquid drinks, because I wasn't eating, and I didn't like them.
Yeah.
So I wasn't winning either way. And then from that, I started to get appointments and everything. Um, I had yeah, I started to get appointments and everything. And then I had a colonoscopy eventually when getting diagnosed. And yeah, that's how I got diagnosed. And then I was put on steroids straight away, more or less. And then I was on infliximab, which I was on that for a year. That was my first proper biologic medication. And
Mhm.
then after that, I had to stop because I was so close to getting to the 10th infusion from that medication, but I
Yeah.
couldn't because the antibodies reacted to it and stuff. So that's a bit disappointing. Um, but then I was moved on to Humira, but barring that, I've always taken azathioprine. I take vitamin D and B12 because I've suffered a lot from fatigue. And I remember what the experience was beforehand, my diagnosis with Crohn's, and now it's a lot much worse because I'm very tired.
Yeah.
I get more tired than I used to be.
Yeah. So you can imagine, like, if I'm talking about sustained muscular contraction. So even when you're sleeping, your muscles are contracting, and that's where you get the depletion of energy because your muscles are always working. Even when you're laying there and you're relaxed and you think, why am I so tired? Well, it's because you're running a marathon inside of your body. And we're not aware of it because nobody thinks about what happens when a muscle, so a muscle does two things: it relaxes and it contracts. And so with injury, what happens is the muscle fibers get adhered together in this short contracted state. So everything that goes along with a muscle contraction is occurring in your body 24/7. So that's why it's so important to reduce the scar tissue and elongate the muscle fibers so that you're not carrying around all of this sustained contraction and your energy levels really go up significantly.
Yeah, I find it's really tiring sometimes, like even to just go out for a walk for the day sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't complain. um, it is what it is, and I wouldn't. I'm kind of glad I got diagnosed with Crohn's in a way because I met some really good people.
Right. And you got to, right. It's nice to have an answer also that
Yeah.
to what's happening inside of your body. Yeah. So when you stand in the mirror tonight, you'll have to take a look at your posture, and you'll see that maybe your right side is slightly elevated, a little higher than the left side and a little tighter. And that's why you felt that burning pain in your stomach on the right side. So if you just, look in the mirror and just stand with your feet, a couple inches apart with your arms hanging down, you can see, if your left shoulder is higher, for example, your left shoulder is higher. And so that would make your right hip higher, because the body is all about balance. So it seeks balance any way it can. So if you have a left shoulder that's up like this, your right hip is going to come up to balance the midsection. So you can look in the mirror and see where your imbalances are.
Yeah, that's a really good idea actually, because yeah, I never thought of that. Like like what was annoying though at that particular time, I at the hospitals and stuff, like at the time, I couldn't sleep. Well, that's how it happened once, to get seen more, because I couldn't sleep, because I got the pain, like the burning feeling, um,
Yeah.
and it like it's like your insides are on fire, more or less. um,
Yeah.
and you feel like it's in one bit, and then you feel like it's somewhere else. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then I was taken, and the annoying part was really that I was taken to A&E, so the ER, like it's A&E in UK. So from there, I was taken there. It was annoying, like because of autism, I'm sensory and I don't like the noise.
Yeah.
Of my autism, and I really, that should be an emergency place, for people for accidents, because that's what like the A&E is for. And Crohn's was an accident. Well, I wouldn't have been an accident because I've got it, and you can't really cure it. As I love a cure one day, but in a way I don't, because I know it's probably silly to say, but I wouldn't know what I would be without Crohn's or autism. I wouldn't cure either, because they don't need curing in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. They need symptom reduction. That's what they need.
Yeah,
Because nobody wants to suffer with the symptoms, of anything. It's like anything that limits your ability to be happy, healthy, sleep, digest properly, definitely needs to be addressed. Because when you're suffering in pain, it's just it's debilitating. And so I never really talk about a cure as much as just symptom reduction, so that you can live life to the fullest. You don't have to worry that if you're going out with your friends that you might have a Crohn's attack. Maybe you can eat at a restaurant and you don't have to worry so much of what's in the food. It just gives you a freedom,
yeah.
when you reduce the symptoms associated with Crohn's or autism or any of the other, diseases.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call autism a disease though.
Right. Crohn's the disease. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, autism is, I usually refer to it as a spectrum, it's,
Yeah, yeah, that's what it's
yeah,
called, isn't it? A spectrum.
yeah, yeah. It's just a,
Because you don't know, you have autism, you have Asperger's, ADHD's in there, isn't it? In that kind of bubble. Like people can have ADHD and autism. and stuff like that. But yeah, like I think with that, it's important, because like also one thing I don't like, well, I've learned to not like quite recently actually, but it's like, because with high functioning and low functioning, between the two terms, and with people that are high functioning and low functioning, like, because even if someone is high functioning, they may, so someone who's low may like still struggle, even if you can talk, like me, for example. I may struggle but not be able to, I can communicate, but I might find it hard to communicate, although I can still communicate like we are now, but I might find it hard to get the words I want to say, and
Yeah.
or like for ask help. So so what I mean is, like, although people who are non-verbal can't really communicate for themselves, it doesn't mean that the people who can communicate and have autism don't find it hard, because they can.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I had two brothers who were both on the spectrum, and they were 6 and 8 when I started, when I met them. And the 6-year-old was completely nonverbal, so he had never said "mama," "dada." He had never said, had any verbal communication whatsoever at age 6. And the 8-year-old, but this, I'm sorry, but the 6-year-old was very athletic. So he hit all of his motor coordination, milestones very early, and he was very strong. And so his brother, who was 8, was very verbal. So he had a hard time not talking. So, it was kind of like a continuous monologue. But he was so weak that he could barely hold a pencil to take a test. So he had his aide, and he would point to the answer, and because it was so difficult to hold a pencil. So two brothers, right? Same environment. And, one of the children, they couldn't have been more opposite. One with very low muscle tone, but, completely verbally, all working. And then the younger brother, who was very strong, like, at 6, he was like a little Superman, but he wasn't able to communicate. So those two brothers were, in the beginning, they were the first kids I started to research and work with and, keep notes on, because after the third appointment, the little boy who was nonverbal, he got in the car after our appointment and he said, "We going home now?" And both of his parents like turned around like, did that just happen? And then the 8-year-old, he started to be able to, they both transferred into a regular classroom. They've both been on the honor roll for years. I haven't treated them again. I did we did like a year where I saw them, sporadically. I would say they each had about 15 appointments. And now they're both in regular classrooms on the honor roll, but most significantly, they aren't suffering with sleep issues. They both had to have a GPS ankle bracelet before they had the symptom reduction, just because, they had so much energy. It's like they're bored, they can't sleep, in the middle of the night, they want to go outside and, take a walk, because that helps them burn off their energy. And so that's what I mean about the symptom reduction, how much peace it brought to the entire family, because that now the parents can sleep through the night. They can sleep through the night. They don't, they're not suffering with the digestive pain that they had before. The older, boy can, go out and he can play football at recess if he wants, where before that was not an option. And, the younger child being able to communicate his wants and needs and have conversations for the first time in his life. It's so satisfying to see the symptom reduction for not only the kids, but the entire family, because, for a mother to hear her son talk for the first time, it's just like, it brings so much joy. And so I love that I turned my focus to autism, because it's just such a passion for me, because I know what it feels like to have trouble getting my words out, because I spent those, mine was only, from age, like 20 to 27. And still now I'm I'm shy, and I do have trouble, but if I'm introduced to someone, I can look at them and say hello, and at least not have that visceral reaction, because when my face would turn beet red and I would start to shake, that doesn't feel good. It's a very uncomfortable. And so it was nice to find something that helps so much with the symptoms.
Yeah. Like that is interesting. Like one brother that has high functioning, one has low functioning. But in the terms of like the labels, as we say, between high functioning and low functioning, I don't agree in a way like about them. I think like I spoke to a person recently that's from Finland, and she said in her country, in Finland, they just call it autism, and I thought it should be like that everywhere. Although there might be, like, if you're in school, maybe that it may be necessary to use them, like maybe for different classes, because but in some instances they may be useful to use, but as a whole it doesn't really help, because you may feel someone low functioning and can't communicate is more severe than someone that can communicate. So I don't also agree with all.
Well, no, and that's that's a perfect example, because which child would you say was low functioning versus high functioning? Because would you say the child that had, motor coordination deficits and, poor strength was the one that was low, or would you say he was high functioning because he could, he was completely verbal? And the child who could understand everything that was going on around him, and he was just a super athlete, would you call him low functioning? But what when he's functioning so high in other categories, so that's the thing. I mean, if they maybe the verbal communication, they could have a classification for that, but autism as a whole, there's so many different aspects to the symptoms associated with it, that which one would you say is the high functioning? Is it just the verbal communication or the motor coordination? So I totally agree with you.
Like, well, on some things I think it's great to talk about autism, because it offers that acceptance and awareness, and I think it should be more acceptance than awareness, because acceptance is what people need. And to know that when you do get a diagnosis, that it's not bad. Like, of course any diagnosis is hard, but it takes time. Like for me personally, I didn't accept having autism straight away, and I didn't really know what it was. Really, I was 9. So I didn't know what it was, and then nowadays people get diagnosed as an adult. Now I see more than when I was in 2009. But yeah, I wasn't confident. I was like you said, I was shy as well. So I was shy meeting new people, very shy. People think I'm coming across as rude if I meet a new person. I'm just staring into space.
Right.
I'm not saying nothing to a person. It's not me being like that. It's just that I'm too shy to talk to you.
Right.
But yeah, and then as the years go on, I gained my confidence from moving from away from a mainstream school to a special school with people who have autism like me and autistic like me. And I thought that was great, because I met actually people that had autism, and I didn't really know many that did. Two similar situations, even though, like as we said, as we all know, autism and Crohn's are two separate things, but have similarities and differences. And between the pair, I didn't accept them both. like with Crohn's, I didn't at the same time. So it takes time. It wouldn't have probably been till 2020 that I did properly start a page, start a podcast to raise awareness for autism and Crohn's, and it helped me, and I think the pandemic was due to that, really due to that, because have more time.
Yeah, definitely more time. Yeah. Were you working somewhere else before you started your podcast? And
I was like, I've not really had a proper job, but I have been offered, like, I love football, for football coaching, and I like when I was younger, I did helping out with football and coaching and everything, and I did actually get my qualification before the pandemic and everything. I was doing driver lessons as well. I was getting ready to drive a car, but unfortunately I couldn't do that because of the pandemic. So lots of things were put on hold, which was annoying.
Yeah.
But I was actually doing this work experience at this place where I actually spread awareness of autism because no one then knew what autism was, which was very interesting because now I found that experience before that not many people they heard of autism but didn't really know what it was. Um,
Wow.
and I explained. It was quite overwhelming, I suppose, because quite a lot of people we was in this meeting room, and I explained about my Crohn's as well, but saying to them they're two separate things. I may need to go to toilet a bit more because of my Crohn's, and I always say because of Crohn's that it's not a toilet condition. Like there's a stigma over Crohn's, isn't there? That it's just a prone toilet condition or a diet condition, which is
Yeah.
not that they can affect both,
Yeah.
but it's not the only symptom. Like we covered, fatigue. I was speaking to people about saying that fatigue is the main symptom, and some else might be a toilet, going to the toilet a lot. So it all really depends. But I told them about that because at that particular time I was going to the toilet quite a lot, because of my Crohn's. Um, and the annoying part of that is I sorry, I had quite a lot of blood in my stools, and the first time I saw that, it was quite upsetting.
Yeah,
um,
that's scary. Yeah.
um, and it still happens up to now, like every once in a while. That is a quite a prone thing that happens. Um, and actually, I'll tell you, um, um, with that work experience place, they did they changed the way they do things to accommodate people who have autism, and I thought that was awesome because
Yeah, that's awesome.
they made it smaller environments as well. And they
Mhm.
did ask me to go back, but I couldn't because of the pandemic and still going on pandemic. Um, but it's not gone away, um, um, which it's quite upsetting, um, that it's like you understand if a person is not have a compromised immune system, they wouldn't look at like the views of the world and probably my eyes or someone else's eyes who understands, because they don't have an immune system, do they? So they won't probably have to worry about it. They probably think, oh, look, if I catch COVID-19 coronavirus, I'll probably go for it. Um, and so yeah, and what happened was once I was okay, about a year or two after my diagnosis with Crohn's, Melissa, I went on my first holiday.
Aw.
I
'Cause
I went to Scotland, Edinburgh. First time on the plane as well. Nice experience. Um, the part where in the turnstile bit where I lost my phone for 5 minutes, like where you got to put your phone in, wasn't was a bit stressful. Um, and the search you don't know, like when you're on a plane, like you've got into all your pockets and everything in the trays. Um, and as an autism person, that's a really interesting topic, isn't it? Because if you're autism, you think, what are I doing now? I haven't done anything wrong. That's what I thought in my mind, anyway. But
and
it,
did the plane exacerbate your symptoms, or did you do okay on the plane?
with my Crohn's, I make sure I was near the front, if it was a toilet.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I was there, and yeah, they did. They understood that I had Crohn's and everything. Um, and yeah, I was loving it out there, even though it weren't for long. Really, Scotland's not that far from where I live in the UK. Um, and yeah, and the annoying thing was when I got to Scotland. Um, well, it wasn't short. It was maybe a day or so. I went to the toilet and there was a pool of blood in the toilet, which was I did have a little tear to my eye at that point because I thought I've recovered from my flare, which when you have Crohn's, it can be any time. It can be years, it can be months, it can be days. It really depends on each person. And in a way, that's why when I do my awareness on the podcast and in general with Crohn's and autism, I always
Yeah.
relate the two in a way because with autism, everyone's different. Um, like someone may be sensory, someone may not, someone verbal, someone may not. And then with Crohn's, someone may have a flare now, someone may have a flare. It's all different, and with all similarities with Crohn's people with Crohn's, autism with autism. And I have been fortunate to meet a few people, like I said before, with Crohn's and autism, and I like that. I like that people have both.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I wasn't happy at that point when I saw the blood pool.
Yeah.
But
Do you look at the external triggers, like for example, like we talked about loud noises with autism, but flying, that it led to something like that, like a flare up, is not a surprise, because when you fly, there's so much pressure on our bodies that our bodies obviously have a reaction. And people who are, don't have Crohn's or don't have autism, they might not notice that their bodies are affected by the flight, but someone who is susceptible to a flare up of what a symptom exacerbation, in either case, a flight can be really devastating for our systems. So
yeah, I don't think it wasn't straight away, I don't believe. But
mm,
um yeah, it was I think because I knew something probably would have happened like that, because it wasn't that long after my diagnosis of Crohn's.
mm,
Um and yeah, it's not a friendly sight.
no, no,
um
that's scary.
yeah,
Yeah.
you expect that. Well, I'm prone with nosebleeds as well, so I'm not winning, am I? I have nosebleeds sometimes, and have blood down below sometimes. But actually, with my Crohn's disease, I have something called patchy pans. Don't know if you've heard of it. Which is known as one of the worst forms of Crohn's.
Mm,
And I believe I have a bit of Crohn's and colitis in a way, like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's.
yeah.
And yeah, and like I thought, like people who don't understand Crohn's, they don't know like there's certain kind of think terms, each name for each person's diagnosis. Like you don't just have Crohn's, you might have a different type of Crohn to someone else. Um,
Mhm.
so it's all complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of different factors.
Yeah, and all the medication names, you can't pronounce them.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but with like it's one thing that I I enjoyed doing, and I like that you enjoyed the episode about like the food, and like
Mhm.
like you can eat one thing and it may be unhealthy, like maybe like McDonald's, like you can eat McDonald's, but um you can't have the milkshake or something like that.
Right. Well, sometimes inflammation is our body's repair mechanism. And so sometimes if somebody's craving McDonald's, which we know is going to have a huge inflammatory response, maybe it's their body needing some extra inflammation for repair. So I always say that, it's like, I've had people, oh, I'm sick and for some reason I'm craving ice cream, and that doesn't make sense. Well, obviously dairy also is inflammatory, and maybe your body is craving it because it wants the extra inflammation for repair. So I was so happy to hear that podcast that you did, because almost no one talks about that, and I'm glad you guys were talking about it from experience, that something that might be considered healthy could be devastating to your system, because there's absolutely no awareness on that topic. Everybody thinks that this is healthy and this isn't healthy, and if you eat this, then you're not following a good diet. But I believe what you guys spoke about is actually far more accurate.
Yeah, because like I used to live on chicken. Shortly, even pre-diagnosis, getting into a diagnosis of Crohn's, which it can be very hard for people to get diagnosed. People take years, don't they, to get a
Mhm.
diagnosis
Yeah.
of anything really. But um, and it is hard. Like I know a person that still waiting, like people wait ages, and I feel for people during the current era of the world, because as with pandemic life, isn't it, where they may be focused on people who have got COVID more than people who have, which they don't know yet, like they may like. And I wouldn't personally, I wouldn't be happy if I was in a lot of pain and I couldn't get seen.
Right. You know, the thing about diagnosis is that our bodies are just equipped with so many repair mechanisms that for a long time, the markers that they're looking for the diagnosis aren't present, because our body is cleaning up, as cleaning up the area. It just, the disease comes and the markers come where they can diagnose something when it surpasses the body's ability to defend and repair. So I hear this all the time. People come in, I was suffering for 15 years and nobody diagnosed me, or they gave me the wrong diagnosis, but now I have MS. Well, it wasn't that they didn't have MS symptoms for those 15 years, they did. But the marker for MS, for example, is obviously the demyelination and the lesions. So the body hasn't had to go to that step yet, but it's still leading up to it for those 15 years. So when people are upset with the doctors or the practitioners that they went to, it's not the doctor's fault. It's that your body did a really good job for a period of time of keeping up with the toxicity and able to metabolize it. It wasn't until it surpassed the body's ability to defend that they were able to get what they were looking for a diagnosis. So
Yeah, oh yeah, I think so. And I think I also don't like is like, especially with autism, like another label thing, when they say it's like a disorder and stuff like that, because I like, or a disability, because
right.
like people always misread things, don't they? And I feel like it's an ability, but it's not like like there's times where like there has been times where people say if you're autism you're Rain Man, or you're really smart, and or you're you know everything because you have autism, and it's not the case. Like I'm not the best at maths. So yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean I'm a genius. It's where some people can say those kind of things, can't they? Like if you have autism, you're going to be like really really smart. And I always link hobbies. If you see another podcast, Melissa, and on my podcast, I like to talk about hobbies quite a lot. And I always like with autism, I always relate them because like it's hyperfixations, isn't it? Where you talk about a certain thing you're interested in, and you find other people that are interested in that. And personally, if someone's not interested in it, I will still talk about it. I think it is something like that. I'll still talk about it. And yeah, hobbies is a massive part of being autistic, I find.
You mean like specific focus towards one
Yeah,
thing or another?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Um,
Yeah.
like, like personally, well, most people will know this. I love Doctor Who. I have a blue box in the background. So I focus. That's my main like hyperfixation, and football. But for some people, they can change over time, I suppose,
Yeah.
and like go on one for months on end, and maybe it can possibly change. But for me, it's always been those two main things. I have other hobbies, of course. I'm not just like two hobbies. um, but yeah, it's something that is relevant with autistic people. I found, because I found quite a lot of people that like Doctor Who too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, with our discussion today, Melissa, I think it's been really good, because like just noticing that what disease is and what a disease isn't. Like we said, like Crohn's is a disease and autism isn't, for example. And
Yeah.
I think that needs to be said more, especially about autism, because as we know, like people can have bad days. As we know, like you can have bad days and good days, can't you?
Yes.
And it's important to notice and advocate and tell other people that it's okay for that. Like um, it's just so educate those people to know that it's not a disease. It's something that you'll learn that it's good. Like, in a way, it's good that you educate yourself of autism, of Crohn's, if anyone wants to. It's something you're passionate about, at least, doesn't it? If you're passionate about something, you'll advocate on that and try to spread that word to other people so they understand.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Well, Melissa, I've really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. It's great meeting you. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Okay.